guys, Danny Johnson here, and this is my 1-year review of the Rust-Oleum rock solid garage floor coating that I installed. I'll put the links in the description if you haven't seen it yet, but I have an install video on this and a 6-month review, and now it's been a full 1 year, and so I just want to give you a review on how the floor is held up. And keep in mind, if you haven't seen my other videos, and feel free to look at them if you haven't, I do a lot of automotive repair. So this garage floor has, just recently, we did a automatic transmission on a Nissan Frontier. Before that, an automatic transmission change on an F-150. Before that, a Mustang clutch. And then a whole bunch of work on my Silverado, the pitman arm, idler arm bracket. Inner and outer tie rods, full suspension on my wife's Infiniti with tie rods as well, and multiple oil changes. So you get the point. This floor has seen a lot of abuse, so you want to keep that in mind. And just in general, I think it's held up very well. There's a few streaks in it right now that you see because I just cleaned it, but I didn't spot clean it, so don't mind that. But a few things I want to point out is, people ask, well, does it chip? Does it scratch? And well, yeah, it will. It depends on what you do to it. Right here, I did chip the concrete itself with the floor jack. As you see, this garage floor has some pretty deep cracks, and so the wheels on that get stuck in that every once in a while when you're jacking up, and you have to be careful about that. And if you have a floor jack like that and you kind of drag it across the floor, you're going to scratch it. Some of these scratches, if they're not deep enough, you can get some degreaser and get in the crack and follow it, and it'll make it somewhat disappear. So yes, the floor is not completely indestructible with this coating, and I really don't know what coating is. I don't think there is one. And so with that said, it's really held up really well. And the main thing that I want to talk about is how easy it cleans up afterwards. I'll put a few clips in here of me cleaning up this floor just recently, and you'll see that it was nasty. And it wiped up really well with some Purple Power cleaner and just a few rags. And I'll show you the way I go around and clean it. You'll laugh at me, I'm sure, but I just get on the creeper, put my knees on it, and just kind of roll myself around and clean it. Not to say that there's better ways, like getting a squeegee and a mop and all that, but all this nasty grime and grease, little Purple Power, wipes right up. Nasty, clean. And now you get a scratch like this. If you wipe it clean, you can clean it to the point where you don't see it as bad. Something like this one. And so the scratch might still be there, but if you clean it out, it doesn't show up as bad. Otherwise, it's held up really well. It's stayed together real well. I haven't seen any chipping in the actual epoxy other than where we've chipped the floor ourselves, and that's understandable. The coating itself is held up real well. It still has a little bit of a shine to it, and they do make a clear coat that goes on top of this. So this is how it looks, without that clear coat on top. It's still somewhat shiny and holding up really well. So right here, this is the main area where a lot of the work goes on, and as on camera, a lot of things don't show up quite as bad. And so I do want to make sure I'm clear and show, you know, that some scratches have formed that, you know, are typical if you're underneath the car and reaching over and slide the jack your way or do something like that. As for this compared to the epoxy, because I did the regular epoxy in my last house, I'd say they hold up pretty much the same. I never had any chipping problems with my epoxy, other than what you see here. As I mentioned in some of my other videos, you can see some gray kind of coming through here, and that wasn't since this has been applied, but that was during the application process, because it does seem to be a little more runny than the epoxy was. So other than that though, there's no real extreme fading. There's no, you know, major problems with it where, you know, where I'm dissatisfied as the customer. And you know, just so you know, no one's paying me for this video. It's not, I bought this at Lowe's, applied it myself, paid full price, so this isn't a sponsored video by any means. But as you can see, it's really held up pretty well for being a year old and having all that abuse in it. So, you know, if you're the average person who, you know, at most maybe you change your oil or do a few light projects, it's gonna look like more of this side over here. This is the side where I usually park my yellow Mustang Cobra, and it, you know, that car doesn't see much use. It's a garage queen, so, you know, it's gonna look just like this over here. You can see it's still a little shinier over where, you know, there's not much traffic on it. But in general, the whole floor is held up fantastic, especially for what I've put it through. So as you can see, there's no major issues with it, no peeling, no chipping. And this is with the garage door closed just because of the lighting was a little better. So I'll go ahead and open the garage and let you see it, and you know, it'll be a different lighting here. You couldn't really see it too well. But what I want to point out is this grease right here that's on the concrete has been there for probably 6 months, maybe even more. And that was when I was doing some of the installation work on the Silverado, the Pitman arm and all that. And right here on the other side is where the actual work was done, and there's no grease. You know, it's wiped perfectly right up. So all in all, I'm very satisfied with it. I would definitely do this again. I've recommended it to all my friends who are moving into houses. I say when you have everything out of the garage, this is a must, because you'll never get to that point again. It's really hard to move all the stuff that you have, you know, out of your garage to do this. So if you're thinking about doing this, especially if you're moving into a new place, I definitely suggest it. From here, I mean, you can see some of the streak marks from you cleaning it and not doing, you know, too perfect of a job. But all in all, you can see that it's still holding together just fine. So I'm gonna definitely say it's a go and recommend it if it's something that you're looking for. Like I said, the epoxy was similar in wear and tear. It's I think half as much as the polycuramine. So I had the epoxy for 2 years in the other house with no issues. So between epoxy and this one, I personally don't see much difference. You can go with the less expensive epoxy, and I think you'd be just as good off. But then again, this is all new concrete, so maybe it would chip differently if you have some higher or lower areas or some pre-existing cracks that you're filling in. So I can't really tell you much about the difference between the two, between the polycuramine or this one. But anyway, let me know if you have any questions that I didn't cover in the video. And as always, I appreciate you watching. Thanks, guys.